Good morning, everyone. It is Friday. We made it to Friday. Thank goodness.
We did.
And Sean is in a suit for those who are not watching the show but listening. Sean, special occasion today. Going to a very special place.
Very special place. We'll be meeting in the East Room, and soon there will be a much bigger ballroom to make the event. So the United States Naval Academy, second year in a row, Commander-in-Chief Trophy presentation.
Yep.
So as a member of the board, it's one of the nice little perks. You get to go to the White House for the presentation of the trophy.
Shouldn't you be wearing a Navy color jacket then if you're going on behalf of Navy? Wouldn't you?
Well, the tie.
Okay. All right. I thought maybe
I do think a lot of people will be wearing their blue and gold, I imagine, but also, in a sea of guys that wear, navy blue jackets, you gotta stand out a little. Pizzazz.
I like it.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. The president loves the suit, so there you go.
Well, he does, and I'm not so sure the sport jacket always. But that's why. But you know what? You pop a little.
But you got to be you. Be authentic. Yeah. Be yourself. Yep. I'm with you.
So funny. Can I just say, so yesterday was my first time in the Oval Office since Trump has redone everything. And there is, people talk about the gold, but you don't even realize, the photos and the videos do not do it justice. There is so much gold that I swear you could get rid of 70% of the lights and you would still have enough, light to see because of all the reflection. What is it about gold with him, Sean?
I mean, it goes back to, when you
the 80s, totally.
Yeah, this has been his thing ever since.
Status.
Trump Tower, all his residents up there, same thing, like the chairs, the fixtures. A lot of the properties have that kind of accent. I'll tell you, though, I'm with you. Every president does their little touch on the Oval with the rug. I will put later today, I'll make a note of this. I have a 360 sort of tour of the Oval that I'll throw up on Instagram, because it's fascinating when you realize the accents. The Declaration of Independence is now just sitting there. He's really, and again, most presidents, it's like the Resolute desk always stays the same because they do, and then they'll change the rug, maybe the curtains, and then maybe a portrait or two, and that's it.
Yep, that's not the case here. I bet the president would love to be part of that reel because he likes to show things off. So that'll be fun.
Oh yeah.
We'll see. We've got a lot to get to today. And if it's Friday and President Trump's second term, I'm sure there's going to be news that comes out maybe while you're at the White House, Sean. You can ask him about it.
I'll stay in touch.
I'll start with this. We've seen a lot of hype that MAGA is splintering over the war in Iran. New polling puts that theory obviously to the test. We'll talk about that on the show. We are also going to dive into this new reporting that is in Axios this morning that the president may send troops to Karg Island. That is, again, Iran's oil export hub in the Persian Gulf. Why would he do that? How's that going to play? We'll discuss that on the show. We'll also talk about this new buzzy story in the Wall Street Journal with the headline, quote, Trump told inner circles some mass deportation policies went too far. This is clearly some sort of blessed leak at this time. Why are they putting this out now? How does it relate to DHS and the shutdown? We'll also go up to Maine to talk about Graham Plattner apologizing for his comments, victim blaming women for their own sexual assaults. How will that play up in the race? And we'll do our winners and losers, maybe talk a little Texas as well in the runoff there. But yeah, just one other thing. Of course, we got to talk about the weather because it's Friday. The DMV apparently is going to be leaving winter officially. We're done with winter. Everybody get very excited. It's going to be upper 70s here in Washington on Sunday. I'm very excited because I'm putting a swing set in for my daughter. And this is the perfect segue to our first ad, which is Fast Growing Trees. I told you, we've talked about it on the show. Great website. This is America's largest and most trusted online nursery with thousands of trees and plants and over 2 million happy customers. I've mentioned on the show before, I do not have a green thumb. All the plants in my house are fake for a reason because I've killed or accidentally killed live plants that I tried to grow in my house before. I'm turning over a new leaf and trying something new with Fast Growing Trees. I have ordered some hydrangeas. I have also scheduled a consultation with them because I have an area in front of my house.
Ooh.
Had this crazy plant that was growing at a crazy rate and taking over all the shrubs in my yard. I had it removed last year, and I reached out to them. I said, I don't know what to do. Can you give me a consultation? They're going to help me with that. So
That's awesome.
Wow.
yeah, it's great. So if you don't, like, again, you don't have a green thumb, you're not, like Dan, a gardener here and know, how to design and plant things, they're going to sort of walk me through it. So I'm really excited about that. So go to fastgrowingtrees.com, use our code Huddle. You get 20% off your first order. Let me make sure I have that website right. Yes, fastgrowingtrees.com, code Huddle, 20% off your first order, just in time for spring, guys. So. Okay, quick look at the day book. There's not a bunch on the planner here. 10:30, as Sean mentioned, the president giving out this Commander-in-Chief trophy. 1:30, the president has a policy meeting before he heads to Palm Beach for, I'm sure.
Why doesn't he just put press conference? Just say, I'm going to call you in. We're going to shoot the breeze. And then I'm off to Palm Beach. It's Friday and, season's not over quite yet.
Yeah, no, I mean, look, yesterday, we had the Japanese media delegation in there too. So when I was in there yesterday, it was super crowded. But maybe today he'll take more questions from America.
Rachel, what was it watching on TV when he made the Pearl Harbor joke?
Yeah,
you could hear some audible gasps. Was that like? Did the tension in the room kind of get awkward, or did people in the room kind of get the ha-ha of it?
I think here's how I mean, like, look. This is President Trump.
Yeah.
We know him now. He's been around for how long? Doesn't surprise me at all, at least. Obviously, it was a really awkward moment for a minute.
Are you kidding? I thought that was one of the funniest things I've ever heard.
I feel like she played it well. Like,
she did.
Oh my gosh, she was so insulted. But like, she knows him too, right?
Wait, can I back up for the audience in case you didn't see it?
Yes.
When he said one last question, and this Japanese reporter said, how come you didn't give us a heads up about the attack on Iran? And he goes, it's the element of surprise. If anyone knows about surprise, it's Japan. Yep. How come you didn't give me a heads up on Pearl Harbor? I'm not kidding. I thought I almost fell down. Like, it's so Trump. It was awesome.
So Trump. That is the best way to put it, Sean. So Trump.
But I mean, you can't deny. I mean, like, you can't ask him, why didn't you give us a heads up on hitting Iran? And then well, why didn't you give us a heads up on Pearl Harbor?
Well, I mean, they're totally disjointed. One was an attack on us, and one's an ally. But I get your point.
It's just,
it was Trump. It's classic
it's
Trump.
Par for the course with this president. So, and I thought she was a good sport about it. You could tell you could tell she's very fond of him. One thing that I thought was strange, I will say, she kept calling him Donald, and not just in her own remarks, but in the interpreter. So the interpreter, when reading her comments, would keep calling him Donald, and I was like, "Ooh, that's kind of." I was like, "Is that normal?" I don't know.
A lot of world leaders do it, and I think you and I were talking about this on text. I think there's an attempt for her to try to live up to Abe. That they had this very personal relationship. Usually in a formal setting, they'll refer to each other by their titles, Mr. President, Prime Minister, but I think she wants to show a level of familiarity and friendship with him for her domestic audience, that I have the same relationship that Shinzo Abe had.
Yeah, no, definitely. Just a quick housekeeping note. If you're not already signed up, you should consider becoming a premium member, guys. This is $10 a month, $100 a year. And for that, you get some extra time with us on Friday. After the show, we send around a Zoom link. You can ask us questions, what books we're reading, favorite television shows, or real politics questions, which most people actually do. Today, you are going to get yours truly. So jump on if you're already a premium member. And if you're not, consider signing up. It supports the show, and we really appreciate it. And we have one more ad before we jump into the conversation about Iran.
Yeah, so All Family Pharmacy. I mean, look at the week we've had. Rachel was running around, going to the White House. Sean's got a tie on. He's calling the Uber as soon as the show's over. He's out of here. What if you need to get a prescription? What if you need for your kids, for yourself, for your spouse? We all know, like, squeezing that in, being like, when can I get there? Is it going to be ready? Is the line going to be long? Someone going to hack a lung up on me? Like, what's going to happen? Well, look, All Family Pharmacy helps take care of that. You go online, you fill out a form, a doctor reviews it, approves it, if assuming everything is on the up and up, and there, boom, they put the prescription in the mail. It arrives directly at your door, things like antibiotics, that, people need. It's a cold season. Every time the season changes, I don't know about you guys, somebody's always getting something in our house. So you go online. They make it so easy. So go to allfamilypharmacy.com and use our code Huddle10 for 10% off your order today.
Thanks to All Family Pharmacy. All right, let's talk about Iran. So we are now 3 weeks into this war, incursion, whatever it is you want to call it. And for now, the base seems to be holding with the president, but we could be on the cusp of boots on the ground. How could that potentially change things? I just want to start, though, with some of this polling that we are seeing this morning from a new political poll. 70% of the president's voters support the strikes on Iran, including 61% of the non-MAGA Trump voters. So I have to say, like, that to me seems lower than some of the other polls. Sean, I want to get your reaction to this first, but also your take on this fact that people who self-identify as MAGA are actually more likely to support this in the Republican Party than other Republicans.
CNN has it literally at 100%. CNN.
Well, there you go.
I mean, and I don't know if I think it was a
That's the MAGA Republicans, right? Like,
right.
MAGA. Yeah.
And I think it's because President Trump's right when he talks about he is MAGA. That is right. I mean, like, people trust him.
Yeah.
To advance the agenda that and I think too many people have tried to hijack it over the last 10 years. And people believe that if he says that this is what we're doing for the right reasons, he has a track record. That's the other thing that people always forget in the dialogue. I've said this before, when it talks to Venezuela or Midnight Hammer, he went in, he did the job. And so he has a level of credibility and trust within the MAGA base that he is going to do what he said he does. When he says that this isn't going to be a forever war, I believe him. I think he understands, whether or not you believe him or not, I think he understands the political peril of a forever war. And he actually believes in his bones that he doesn't want to be the president known for this. So he has a lot, and the polls reflect that.
I want to bring up this. It's a Reuters poll here, polling finding that most Americans don't want boots on the ground. A lot of people are focusing on this all adults 7% number. Only 7% say yes, they want a large scale invasion, but it's actually like bigger than that. If you add the yes, they would support special forces. We're looking at 41% who would say they would support that. But more importantly, look at this Republican number. 77% total Republicans would support boots on the ground, which is quite interesting to me, given the narrative out there. I mean, Republicans would be with him if he decides to do this. And speaking of, Dan, good segue here for you. There's this reporting in Axios that even though the president said when I was in the Oval Office yesterday, said no, he indicated he wasn't.
Well,
he walked it back. You know how
I was going to say.
He said no, but I wouldn't tell you if I'm going to send boots on the ground, which fair enough. But Axios saying that he's looking at sending troops into Karg Island, a senior administration official telling them that Trump wants Hormuz open. If he has to take Karg Island to make it happen, that's going to happen. That'd be a huge, dramatic escalation in this war.
Well, it would, but I think the thing is, as we close out this third week, is as long as Trump's base, being MAGA, not the non-MAGA people who were part of the 24 coalition, but the hardcore, as long as they remain with him, he's got runway here, no pun intended, to keep operating to try to bring this, to a successful closure. And so I think for all the noise, even about ground invasions and oil, potentially going up to $5 a gallon and, kind of all of this, which it's all real, his base is sticking by him. And so I think that, if there are ground troops, look, I think the big issue is if there are casualties. You could have 50,000 ground troops. If 49,995 come home, we will be very sad for the 5 that don't. But most Americans will say, okay, we achieved the goal. There was minimal casualties. Let's say 7,500, which I think is about the number that sounds like is going to be there in the next few weeks. If 100 are attacked, John said this the other day, if a battalion is hit and a ship sinks or there's something goes wrong, again, fog of war, rarely do you bat 1,000. Then we'll see if those numbers hold. But I think for now, he's got room to keep pressing the case and people are sticking by him. Where this is a challenge, I'll say, is in the midterms, the non-MAGA Republicans, independents, those numbers are not good. And that's the problem. If you're on the ballot in November, you're anxious. But he doesn't care.
I want to get your take on on that, Sean, in a second. Just one note here. There's a nugget in this Axios story that suggests if he is to take Cargill, and we're talking about at least a month more, somebody close to the White House saying they would need a month to weaken Iran more with strikes, then take the island, and then, quote, I don't know if I can say this, get them by the balls for negotiation purposes. But that's this official basically saying, like, at least a month longer. The base will stick with him through that. It sounds like you think.
Yeah, I think so. I think the other thing that's not being discussed I guess for somewhat obvious reasons, but I talked to some folks yesterday on the economic side. And what is fascinating is, according to a lot of people that focus on that side of the ledger, the president's got a lot of levers that he could pull to get prices down about $1. Everything from the strategic petroleum reserve to regulatory to gas taxes to a market to a domestic market ban. And the big issue is this: in each thing, there's a corresponding potential negative, right? So you take the gas tax off, right? At some point you got to put it back on. And so there are these things where the president's got a lot of options. He's just got to figure out what happens. Here's the one thing that I will be fascinated on. The one economic policy piece that fascinates me is the following. We, the United States, only get 2% of our oil from the Middle East. Most of it is domestically produced. In fact, most of Asia, and what's driving up the cost is Asia and Europe buying their oil from us. And what's it called? Bert, like the type of oil that we produce here. I forget the exact.
I would not know.
If the president actually just said that there was a domestic market ban, that no oil produced in the United States, our oil prices would drop like that, 2 seconds. Like you'd see prices drop close to, $0.75. And that would really solve a domestic problem. And then what I believe, I mean, again, this is not my wheelhouse, but as I probed a lot of people yesterday, I'm like, why not? It has to do with the other end of the spectrum. When he takes that off, what happens, and is there a way to then recalibrate the global market? But I do think that there's a lot of these things in his quiver that he may start to pull out one by one and say, I've got to get some economic relief to the American people. And
you think he starts to do that pretty soon?
Well, I think we talked about this the other day. Remember, there was a story that said Susie Wiles was saying, hey, bring me ideas.
That was a couple weeks ago, though.
And the ideas are there. But again, if there's no easy one is really the takeaway. You do one and it has some kind of long-term consequence. But I do think that there are ones that make more sense than others in terms of that equation. I wouldn't be surprised in the next 4 weeks to see some of these go into play before we get, I think we're hitting $4 now. I think before we hit $5 is when you see that.
I think the problem is the big worry now, both here and around the world, is it's hard to now envision inflation not accelerating. So now you're going to start probably in the next 30 to 60 days, have headlines of inflation going up, right? And we talked about it. Once it goes in, it's hard to get out. And so this is going to be something that'll be very interesting because, as Sean said in his opening, every action has a kind of negative reaction somewhere else in the system, whether it's in Europe or Asia or whatnot. But again, the base is sticking with them. So for now, they seem to be, they're tolerating it enough to see if he can, because they trust him. And that's also,
I mean, let me just put a pin in this discussion about Cargill Island or whatever. Is that Dan's right? I mean, like we talked about this, there is the human life aspect. Once you start really putting people anywhere, that's going to be an issue. And I think that they have to deal with that. There's a short term, which is, can you keep trying to kill the Iranian leaders until somebody finally says uncle? I think that's less and less becoming an option. They've shown that that's not really where their head is at. And we haven't seen any cracks. Now, maybe none of us get the intel reports. Maybe number 6 on the list is when the next 5 go down. Yeah. But I think that we are going to see a point where the prevailing consensus, at least that I'm hearing, seems to be that we end up more in that putting people on there, controlling the area, getting control of the assets. And even to Dan's point the other day on the uranium, either getting in there and burying it deeper so it's useless, or extracting it and then dumping it somewhere. But there's that seems to be where we're headed. because I think partly because the base is still with them, and because the reality of if you cut the one thing that people are saying, if you cut bait and leave the leadership there, you've just bought some time, and that's it.
Just very quickly before we move on, percent chance that we have boots on the ground. Would you guys say?
100.
100. Yeah.
And by the way, just because this seems to be the definition of is if a boot is on an island, to me that we have boots on the ground in Iran. I'm not
Sean?
splitting the baby of an island is not the mainland.
Yeah, that's fair. Totally get you. Sean, you think it's going to happen? Yeah.
99.
All right. Related topic. Let's talk about these battle lines being drawn over this $200 billion request, not officially made from the White House, but the president did say yesterday in the Oval Office, he sort of gave a justification for it, saying we need to be in, what was the phrase, tippy-top shape in this war. And then Secretary Hegseth put it pretty succinctly, saying killing bad guys costs money. I thought that was a pretty good line, actually. So some Republicans are floating this idea of using reconciliation to circumvent the filibuster, get around Democrats, and pass this money to continue to fund this war. But we have talked on the show many times how difficult that is, given their slim margin. They would have to find offsets. That means potential cuts in a midterm year. Very difficult. But Sean, does the fact that we are in, I know you don't call it war, but we're in this situation, does that change things and rally the troops on the Hill so that they could actually do it via reconciliation, or is that a no-go?
I think, look, like we just discussed on the war, everybody's looking for options. Where I'm skeptical of reconciliation is there doesn't seem to be any consensus among the key leaders that's the avenue. With reconciliation, if you're going to go in, the problem is that it's like everybody wants a piece of it. So they're going to want more tax cuts. They're going to want all of these other healthcare, right? So getting consensus to me is very difficult. I get it's very attractive to folks because you get a 50 vote threshold in the Senate, but there are some serious constraints. I heard John Kennedy in the last couple of days say that he thinks that the SAVE Act should get thrown in there. I have as much as I'd love to think that's possible, I have a hard time thinking the parliamentarian is going to view that. Right. I mean, it doesn't have a financial, like they're very specific about the financial nature of policy. It either has to have a tax consequence or a benefit. And I don't know how you could argue that the SAVE Act does. Again, I'm all for it. So,
or you just fire their parliamentarian.
Done it before.
Held back from doing that. To their credit. Dan, though, I mean, Sean just mentioned some Republicans not fans of this. Susan Collins, who chairs the Appropriations Committee, says she wants this to be part
of course, because no appropriator is ever going to say, "I don't want to be in charge,"
because that takes the power out of her hands. Of course, Senate Armed Services Chair Roger Wicker, though, says regular order is probably preferred. But they're, I mean, again, like, can they get 60? Can they get Democrats? Just a quote from Maine Senator Angus King, independent caucuses with Dems, often one of the people that Republicans will reach out to gauge, striking a deal and getting to that 60 vote threshold, says, I've got to see the details. To be honest, it's going to be hard for me to support it because I think this war was a mistake. It wasn't justified, and it has been supported by Congress. Can they really get the Dems they need for 60?
It's going to be hard. I think they have a problem in the House too. And I think, one of the things that Democrats are going to kind of sit there and smile about is you have Republicans saying we should cut healthcare as part of offsets. They're going on the record about it. I mean, the TV ads write themselves. And so I think, ultimately, if they don't do reconciliation, which is probably what they're going to end up doing, they'll have to try to find a way to get 60 Democrats. I think there's a way to do it, but, historically, this administration has not necessarily been very, friendly to Congress and to the other side. But I do think ultimately they'll find a way. You got to fund this in some capacity. It may not be $200 billion, but as Sean said, they don't want to come back at Labor Day in the middle of the campaign season and have to ask for more money. And I think the split is going to be that Democrats will say, we'll fund it, but it's going to be for less. And you are going to have to come back in the fall.
Well, but that's what I was going to ask. Like, what is it? What would get them to a yes in your mind? Is it it's a smaller portion that does.
Yeah, I think it's a smaller
bag,
portion, and some sort of you will come and report to Congress more frequently, right?
Yeah.
Which, look, when Rubio and others have gone up and briefed, they have. Of course, the thing that Democrats are kind of upset about is they don't feel like there's been a lot of candor. Because I think the last one was Rubio said there'll be no boots on the ground, and now here we are. They're likely going to be boots on the ground. So I think they'll approve it again. Less amount of money, so it'll go for whatever 3 months. But they're going to keep them updated and come back.
So 2 things on this. One, I actually think it's easier to get 60 votes in the Senate than consensus on reconciliation.
Yeah, I agree.
I would focus on that. I think it's really hard. I don't think we've handled the DHS funding messaging well in terms of putting the focus on Dems and really making them own it, which we'll get to later. But I do think that on this, it would be very hard by the time this comes up for a vote. I think we will have some troops on the ground. By the way, just your big tell on this, that just giving you all a quick little heads up. There's a reason the USS Tripoli is steaming that way. If you understand the what that ship does and who's on it, you will start to figure out a big option that the president has.
Well, and there's another strike group very similar now leaving the West Coast that's now going out.
But the exact there's amphibious ships, generally speaking, have a purpose, right? You go in and you use LCACs and other things for landing on. But if you look at where the USS Tripoli was, where it's going, and what that ship was specifically designed for, that's your big tell.
But can you what was it?
Well, no, I mean, they're reporting. The Wall Street Journal has a great story of each asset that's a part of that strike group, what exactly they are trained for, what the soldiers are trained for. To Sean's point,
so most like an LAP, like a big deck amphibious ship carries Marines, has helicopters, and then in the well deck you've got what we call an LCAC. So that's the stern drops down. The LCAC goes out. It can bring Marines on shore. The Tripoli is one of 3 amphibious ships, I believe, that doesn't have that well deck design. In fact, it's made to carry a lot more fuel they've got their planes actually can take off on a short runway and land horizontally. So it's a very different configuration, but you're putting Marines out there by air. I can carry a lot. I mean, just the entire configuration was set up for something exactly like this. Yeah. And so I'm just telling you, when you see, to Dan's point, what the tell's always in the asset, where it goes and why and what it does. And like I said, there's the Tripoli is one of 3 in that class of ships that is a very specific mission. So I think once that happens, there's at least, I think, what do we need? I think you lose maybe Rand Paul, so you're going to need 8 Dems, and I think you could pick him up. So I think once that happens, the equation is very different for a Democrat to vote against a military operation in progress.
Well, and I also just think, bottom line, there are enough Democrats who would say at the end of the day, we don't want to lose, right? So we will fund this. The troops are there. They're on the ground. The bombs are flying. We don't like this, but we'll give you for a couple months, and then you need to come back. And I actually think that's fairly appropriate.
We'll see. I mean, I hope you're right. But today's Dem party is it's hard to predict. So we'll see. Let's move on, guys. Topic number 3. So this interesting little story in the Wall Street Journal last night that had people buzzing online, specifically folks on the right. Trump told Inner Circle some mass deportation policies went too far. The story basically says that Trump is looking to lower the profile of his deportation effort. He wants this new approach that Mark Wayne Mullen sort of hinted at during his confirmation hearing, wants to focus on the bad guys, no more high profile mass raids, sort of like they did in Chicago and Minnesota. But number one, I should say, this doesn't surprise me, right? They've been sort of doing this for a while. The thing that's interesting about it is the timing. Dan, I'm curious, will Democrats take this as an olive branch that could maybe get them to reopen DHS? Because it's hard for me to see another reason why this story was put out right now other than trying to get to a deal on DHS.
Well, I actually disagree about that. I think there's a little bit of a blowback about Mullen's testimony. There have been, as you say, this is not a new story. They've been dripping out this.
For sure.
Look, the White House sees the same polling Democrats see, which is this issue has flipped. It is now a liability for them. So there's a reason that that Mullen's offered judicial warrants. It polls off the charts, right? There's a reason that they have been backtracking, and Democrats, I mean, I hate to say it, there's a reason that they haven't caved, because they see the same numbers the White House sees. So I think that what's happened is, remember the 10 things everyone was like, oh my God, these are crazy, Democrats are never going to get them. And we said, well, maybe they'll get like 4 or 5. I think now they think they're going to get 7 or 8 of them. I mean, they're now talking about some form of identification on the badge, just like police officers. Why? It tests well. So, I mean, I think that the White House is signaling, one, that Mullen's going to change the tune. 2, like, we get it. We're going to have to make a lot of these changes. And it's not to Democrats. It's to their own party. Sean said the other day, I'm totally against judicial warrants. At the end of the day, they're not, this is not the fight the White House wants. They want the fight on bad hombres. But right now, the fight isn't there. So I think it wasn't to us. It was to his own party.
It was to protect and support Mark Wade Mullen.
MAGA is whatever Trump.
Out of that theory, Sean.
Right. MAGA is whatever Trump says it is.
Yeah. Well, yeah. I mean, he's right now. I think he's in a good place. That's.
Yep. Sean, there are some outside groups pushing back on this, of course.
Well, can I one other thing that I'm sorry, I should have led with this. I think that Donald Trump is probably
that's good.
Yeah, the greatest understander of visuals, and the idea of like what and he looks at these polls and he says, okay, people love when we go in, we take the bad hombre out. And the other part is it looks chaotic. And I don't think it's an either or. Like, I don't think it's okay. We don't have to go after people in this country who are in this country illegally. Like, you know, Tom Homan has always said, when you roll somebody up, it's like anything else. You go to a crime scene to arrest somebody for fill in the blank, and you find 3 other people that have broken the law. You don't just let them go, you arrest them. And I think that's fine. I think where the president doesn't like the imagery of, you know, people getting rolled up and seeing stuff on that. So he gets it. I don't think this is a policy thing as much as it is an imagery thing.
I also, though, think that he is aware, because we've talked about this tension with the ag community, hospitality community. I also think he is aware that his allies in the business community and sprinkled in a lot of red America have said, hey, look, there's a problem for us, like just operating our businesses. And I do think that has resonated with him. In addition to the visuals, totally agree, Sean. The visual is king with him. But there's also a like practicality about this, given his background.
Yeah.
Should also note that outside groups, some of them are pushing back this mass deportation coalition, urging ICE to do a minimum of 1 million deportations in 2026. Clearly not going to happen. But of course, they got to look at the base and how they're going to react to this. Some people are not going to be happy, but they're not going to stay home. To your point, Sean, they're generally pleased with this president. Okay, let's go to Maine. So Graham Plattner responded to James Mills' negative attack ads highlighting victim blaming of women who were sexually assaulted. Let's take a listen to this ad.
These ads, I'd have questions. These are words and statements I abhor from a time in my life when I was struggling deeply after returning from war. These words are not who I am. So, Maine, I'm asking you not to judge me for the worst thing I said on the internet on my worst day 14 years ago, but who I am today and the kind of senator I promised to be. I'm Graham Plattner, and I approve this message, and I will not let you down.
Good ad.
Just a reminder of what he said back then. He said to avoid rape, women should not get so altered that they wind up having sex with someone they don't mean to, and that they should act like adults. Yeah, Dan, I mean, is this going to neutralize those attack ads?
I don't know. I think his audience is not necessarily Mills, but the Collins voters. I talked to some people yesterday, pretty familiar with this race. Graham Plattner leads right now in the primary. And I said this when Mills launched those ads. That was not something you do if you're up, right? That is something when you think I need to knock him down. The battle in that state is older white women, right? It is an older electorate. I think it's actually perhaps one of the older electorates in the country. Older white women have been Collins' saving grace every time Democrats think, it's Lucy with the football, that they have her. And so Mills' ad is potentially a problem in the general, which is why I think he is so aggressive. I think Mills put up $70,000 to put that initial ad out. Plattner spending $350,000 to combat it. That tells you,
He sees it as a threat.
Yeah, that they see it. Look, this is kind of like Trump a little bit, where there are so many allegations about Plattner now, years ago, that you just ask yourself, do people care? Does it stick? Does it resonate? Or do they look and say, in today's age, all right, he was young and stupid, said some stuff he shouldn't have, but I'm going to give him a chance. Ooh.
Yeah, I don't know. On the one hand, everybody does like an apology, right? Admit when you're wrong, you did something stupid or said something stupid. But I mean, I don't know. Like I would love
to. This is the last time we're here.
This. Yeah.
Look, I will give him credit for this. That's the best ad that you could put out in response to this. And it tries to nip it in the bud. Yeah. That being said, if you don't think you're going to see this in multiple variations from Susan Collins' team, and like the super PAC world is going to go nuts on this, because Dan's right, hitting older women in particular in Maine with this. And here's the one mistake that Graham Plattner made in that ad is he said, don't judge me by the worst thing I said on my worst day. Well, here's the problem. You better hope that was the worst thing you said on your worst day, because I have a feeling, considering some of the oppo on Graham Plattner, that there's a little bit more. Graham may have had a lot of bad days because he said a lot of crazy stuff and he said a lot of bad things. So you can only ask the voters for forgiveness so many times. If you're constantly saying, well, forgive me for that too, and forgive me for that, and forgive me for that. There's a bigger, broader problem though. I mean, Elizabeth Warren endorsed this guy. This is a party who says we should believe the women, we should do this. And now we're basically saying, in the interest of the greater good for the party, let's ignore this stuff that he said about raping women, right? And how women are raped. It's disgusting. It's abhorrent. And the idea that we're excusing it by saying I had a bad day, it's disqualifying. Number one. Number two, she also went after Pete Hegseth very publicly on a bunch of the Christian tattoos that Pete had, and is willing to explain it away with Graham Plattner. I think it's one thing for these guys to play a primary strategy, and I get what they have to do. You have to win the first battle first. But this is going to be I think of all the races that Republicans have, North Carolina, Michigan, etc. This to me is the easiest. Susan Collins will win by 5 to 7 points in November.
Well, here's the one other thing to think about with this attack, which is why I think Plattner, this is the first time Collins is on the ballot since the Roe v. Wade was overturned. Don't think Democrats are not going to remind her, right, that she ultimately voted for a bunch of these justices. And so I think this is where, if you're Plattner, you are trying to get ahead of this, because to Sean's point, it's going to make it harder for you to go after Collins on abortion when there are potentially, these type of ads out or attacks out there. Again, older white women is going to be the key. So, there's
Oh, I'm sorry, Jay. Go ahead.
No, just a lot of shadow boxing.
I was going to say, on the abortion, I feel like abortion is topic number 5 or 6 for Democrats.
Yeah, but don't forget.
Do Democratic voters, that does not seem to be what they're
not Democratic voters. You're trying to peel off Collins, those older white women who, look, older voters tend to be a little more conservative. They tend to be a little more sticky in their allegiance to somebody. Look, Collins has always had this where she kind of is tight or tied, slightly behind going into Labor Day, and Democrats are we're finally going to get her. And it's 3 weeks out. There's usually some sort of opposition reason. And those voters come home to Susan Collins, and to Sean's point, she wins by 5 points, and Democrats say, gosh darn it, next time. It's like Republicans with New Jersey.
Yep.
Let's quick hit Texas. So we're
by the way, real quick, if I were Susan Collins' team, keep your foot on the pedal, even if it's 1,000 points and some digital, but do not let this thing go.
Well, this is Mills' ad.
No, I know, but they need to pummel. You have to be careful though. Also remember, you got to be careful that you don't end up with Mills. I actually think Susan Collins would have a tougher race against Mills than Plattner.
Down in Texas, we are still waiting for the president's endorsement on the Texas runoff. He said at one point a few days ago that he was going to endorse this week, if I'm not mistaken, but TBD. Let's see. There is some new polling that won't exactly help Cornyn's case. James Tallarico, their campaign, releasing these internal numbers showing he'd beat Cornyn by 2, 43% to 41%, and Paxton by 1, 44% to 43%. Now, Sean, this validates what a lot of people, I mean, it's a small sampling, right? So we have to take it with a grain of salt. But this kind of poll validates what MAGA has been arguing, which is like, there's no difference between these two candidates. So don't get involved, President Trump.
Exactly. And that's my takeaway. Look, I meant to dig into the crosstabs this morning. I just didn't I'm still not I have a hard time believing that the head to head is that close. It just doesn't pass the smell test in Texas. That being said, I think the big takeaway is exactly that, which is that if you are Ken Paxton, you actually, and again, it's a margin of error thing, but you're running around saying, look, we actually do better head to head than John Cornyn does. Why would you endorse him? I think and maybe that's part of the reason that Tallarico wanted this out. They obviously want to run against Paxton.
Right. I was going to say, Dan, do you buy those numbers, or do you think this is?
I mean, look, I do think there's something to the fact that the base loves Paxton. As Sean's always said, he's been MAGA for, from day one. He's been a starlet for Donald Trump. And I think there is something to be said that the base doesn't love Cornyn. And so would a point or two of the base not turn out for Cornyn that will turn out for Paxton? Question, of course, is do those Bush Republicans then go to Tallarico? I think there's still in the Democratic Party, there is still trepidation of are we really going in, because it would take 100 million or more to try to win that state. And we just talked about Maine, and they're looking at Alaska and they're looking at Iowa, where $100 goes really far. Yeah, I'm being a little facetious here, but that is such an expensive state that I think if you're Tallarico, you are trying everything you can to see if you can get Paxton. Yeah. And even then, I'm not sure.
The one thing I'll tell you that I've sort of initially I referred to him as Beto 2.0, and I think that's insulting to Beto because this guy is friggin' nuts. I mean, some of the things that he has said are so outside the mainstream. He is pretty and he speaks like ChatGPT, but he is nuts. And I'm telling you, there is no way Texas. This isn't a Ann Richards moderate Democrat, like a blue dog. He's full on insane. I just don't. And so
on Team Red Hat right now.
Well, I think
this is not the guy that people again. Beto knew how to fake it, right? I think kind of play the game. Tallarico is so antithetical to what you would assume a Texas Democrat could swallow. I'm sorry. I just don't think this thing will even be close.
I disagree about that. And what I think is interesting, and I think Tallarico is going to be a test case, is most Democrats said things in 2020, 2021 on the kind of the DEI social issue stuff, the border, that is now just totally unpopular.
Transgender things.
Right. And the question is, do voters still hold those strong views and say it's disqualifying? Because if that's the case, to Sean's point, he's got no chance. Or do they say that, okay, I don't like it, but you're not saying, you're going to reopen the border or, ban hamburger meat or whatever. So I'm going to look past it because what I care about now is A, B, C, and D. And the party, I know there are people who are monitoring that down there who feel like so far the numbers haven't fallen. Like they're calling him vegan Tallarico or something like that because they're saying, and so Tallarico is putting up social media stuff now of eating barbecue every day. And he's like, I've always eaten meat. I've never not eaten meat. I love meat. So the question is just, do you start to see an erosion? And then it says to the party, and if you're thinking about 2028, how many times are you on camera making crazy statements?
I was going to say, because he was boasting that his whole office was vegan at one point, right?
That's why they're running the ads.
Yeah, but to Sean's point and your point about those Bush Republicans, what do they do if Paxton is the nominee? It's hard for me to see Bush Republicans showing up for a guy who says stuff like that, or that God has multiple genders, and that the thing he loves more than his friends is that Remember that video that's going viral right now about like
which one?
I know they're like old videos, and he's like, "What do I love most? I love trans kids," and it's just like,
no, I hear you. Look,
yeah.
look. Gavin Newsom's going to have every Democrat who was anything in 2021, 2022 probably has a tweet, a town hall, a fundraiser where you made a comment regarding trans people, the people of color, having chance. I mean, just go down the line of all the things that the base was talking about, and now not so much.
All right, guys, we got to do a Cozy Earth ad real quick. Sean, how are those new jammies?
Well, here's the thing. I told you this was like a A/B test in real time. Yesterday, I thought I was 100% on the team with the first layer pajamas. I love those things. I'm telling you, I could sleep in them every day. And then last night, I did it. I switched over and I went to the men's bamboo stretch knit pajama bottom. I mean, I don't know.
Just sounds comfortable.
Yeah. How do you choose? They were both in different ways just beautiful. I was so comfortable. I'm telling you, there's a reason I got both. I couldn't make the decision on the website. If you don't make the decision, the beautiful thing right now is that we are in a position in this world where using code Huddle, you can get 20% off at Cozy Earth. Don't choose between two amazing products. Get both. I mean, I'm telling you, the men's bamboo stretch knit pajama, I'm reading the actual label here because I didn't want to get this wrong. If I had to choose between that and the first layer, I don't know. They are both amazing. So they've got everything that you need, whether it's pajamas, towels, blankets, candles, eye mask, CozyEarth.com. Use code Huddle and buy as much as you want use code Huddle for 20% off.
Awesome. Thanks to Cozy Earth. Let's do our final segment, winners, losers, and what to watch. We're going to switch it up today and start with what to watch.
Oh.
It's kind of a selfish reason because I have some reporting on what to watch. But who wants to start?
Then let's just start it off. Rachel, speaking of changing it up, you always go
live. Oh, yeah.
Okay, sure. So what am I watching? I wrote about this yesterday. Tulsi Gabbard's tightrope. If you guys saw her hearing yesterday, Elise Stefanik asked her point blank what a lot of Republicans were thinking. Do you agree with Joe Kent in his letter, that letter that he wrote embarrassing the president on Iran? She initially dodged the question completely, and Stefanik had to follow up, and eventually she said yes, she had some concerns. But like, this highlights again this tightrope she is trying to walk. She is like this dove. She served her country, but she doesn't like war, and she is tiptoeing around all these questions, saying only the president can determine what is an imminent threat, not her, even though she leads the intelligence community. I have some reporting on this. A lot of people speculating that she's going to resign. Laura Loomer was tweeting about it last night. I don't like to go up against Laura Loomer because she's right often, but I am told that she's not going to resign. I'm told the president has talked to her one-on-one quite frequently in the past few days, and past few weeks. He knows exactly where she stands. And somebody was articulating this to me, like, he is okay with having people in his orbit who disagree with him and offer different perspectives. And clearly, we are getting the sense that Tulsi is not there. She does not support what is going on with the war, but I'm told she's not going to go anywhere anytime soon. There's one thing I think we should keep an eye on, though. J.D. Vance said it pretty well when he was talking about Joe Kent. He said, if you can't support what the president is doing, it's a good thing to resign. I do wonder at what point she starts asking herself that same question, but I'm told it's not going to be anytime soon. Let's hope I'm right and not Laura Loomer. That's my what to watch. Okay, who wants to go next?
I can go next. What I'm watching for, we talked a little bit about this earlier. I'm wondering if there are more deployments of ground troops and amphibious assets, because just like Venezuela, just like we were getting ready with Iran, Sean's point, watch the assets. When they start going there, they're not going for vacation. And there's a report from our friends at Newsmax that more amphibious groups are being sent to the Middle East. I'm going to see if that number starts getting even closer to 10,000.
I have two things real quick. I'm going to watch the SAVE Act this weekend. The Senate is staying in town. I want to see how committed these guys are to actually maintaining this filibuster issue. So how committed they are. It's a weekend. The Senate doesn't like to work past 4:00. Most states have a mind to Friday.
Yep.
So whether this is real or fake, we'll see. And then the second thing is I'm continuing to watch these TSA lines. You saw Secretary Sean Duffy and others continue to talk about how the number of TSA agents that are walking off the job, and they're making these personal pleas, to say, hey, I make $35,000. I can't pay for this. This is going to keep getting worse. And I don't know when it crescendos, but especially on the weekends when it's, I think these lines and this issue is going to continue to crescendo.
Yeah. And Easter's approaching when people tend to travel.
Spring break.
Well, I'm dreading that flight in a few weeks. Man.
Okay. Honestly, Rachel, it's funny. I've always, cause I have pre and clear, right? So but because of these things, like you now think about, like, do I have to get there 2 hours before or not? And I did this a couple of weeks ago. I left way early because I was concerned.
Yeah. Yeah. And nothing like a 3-year-old running around an airport chasing them. Okay. Let's do losers. Dan?
Okay. My loser of the week is the progressive wing of the Democratic Party. All the talk about, they own the party and they are ascendant and the party's gone so far left. They are having trouble. It's early in the primary season, but their batting average is not good. Like they are having trouble winning even in the bluest of blue areas. If you're running in 2028, we may be seeing the good old lesson. Social media is not and cable news is not the real world. And Democratic voters are just not as progressive as you would think if you follow Jasmine Crockett on X. So we'll see. But so far, this is not a good week for them.
Well, it wasn't a good week for most Democrats. Between the Cesar Chavez stuff, the Kathy Hochul begging people to come back, Jasmine Crockett having her security guard get shot because he apparently didn't tell everyone who he was. I mean, but I had, and also like we haven't even talked about the Bachelorette. I mean, the Bachelorette being canceled for the season. We'll save that for Monday. But I want to show you who my loser of the week is and why. Take a listen to this new ad that's up here in Virginia.
Virginia, we are counting on you. Republicans want to steal enough seats in Congress to rig the next election and wield unchecked power for 2 more years. But you can stop them by voting yes by April 21st. Help put our elections back on a level playing field and let voters decide, not politicians. This is the responsible thing to do. Help us chart a better path forward, Virginia.
All right.
Vote yes by April.
I don't want to give him, I will be voting no, obviously, on that. The reason I call this out is, look, everything's fair in politics. Like, and so I don't, but for so long, the reason I think Obama is the loser in this is we were told that if you talk about stealing elections and rigged elections, that was undermining democracy. We've been lectured by the left and the media about this. And here is the former president of the United States, who is more sanctimonious than others, calling that out, suddenly saying Republicans are trying to steal seats and rig an election and, quote, let voters decide, not politicians. Virginia did decide. We had a 2020 constitutional amendment that was passed statewide with 63%. Gavin Newsom, what he did in California, he was honest about it. He said, Texas is redistricting. We're going to do it too to even it out. Okay. Virginia, what's happening here is a lie. And for all of the words they want to use, they want to go out and say, you know what? We have the right to do it. We have the power. God bless you. But to now use the words that you told us were so over the top, beyond the pale, and undermining democracy, to talk about stealing elections and rigging, game on.
Boy, it's amazing. It's amazing where this issue started with the
when New York tried to redistrict and all these states.
When they made the power play in Texas, and now where this is now.
I love how your timeline starts before you remember your state in New York tried to do this. It was the courts that stopped them last cycle.
Again, who started it this cycle? Why did they do it?
So
where are we now?
Yes, right? I mean, like,
let's move the timeline. I'm telling you, unreal.
Yeah. Okay, my loser of the week is Corey Lewandowski for the second time. I mean, we've been hearing that, he's been pushing to get a little off the top of some of these government contracts. NBC comes with the receipts. They've got these details in this story earlier this week about him telling a private prison CEO that had $1 billion worth of contracts with the government that he wanted to be paid in exchange for protecting or growing those contracts. Apparently it led to a fight. They tried to get back together. The CEO was like, I'll hire you as a consultant. I just can't do what you're asking. And apparently Lewandowski continued to push back.
Again, allegedly.
I was going to say, we should say that Corey Lewandowski denies all of this. But as Sean often says on these programs, the president cares if people are trying to profit off his name. He's surely seeing these stories. The question is, how long until he's called up to Capitol Hill is my question. Let's do winners.
And by the way, there's once you get caught, not just getting those contracts, but skimming points off of ad buys and all this, you can funnel it all you want. Good investigators follow the money. This is, you better hope that you were straight up on this stuff.
Let's do winners. Dan.
My winner is JB Pritzker. He had a good week. He got a little boomlet here. It's hard to get, make a name for yourself or get buzzy press for 2028 this far out. We have talked about reasons that we all think he may not be the nominee, may not win a general election. But for JB Pritzker this week, he had a good week. He took a little bit of a victory lap. I will be curious what he does next to build on this momentum.
I'll keep it simple and quick. My winner is the U.S. Navy. I think when you look at all of the assets that have moved, the operation, this doesn't happen by mistake. It's a level of precision coordination, and they don't get the credit they deserve for executing that.
My winner of the week is not a name most people watching this probably know. Dan Caldwell. He is one of the top 3 officials that Hegseth brought in to Department of War and then ended up firing and accusing them of leaking. I wrote about it. A lot of people have written about it. Their lives totally turned upside down as they were sort of blackballed and, couldn't get jobs for a time. He was just rehired in the government in an intelligence capacity. And this comes, as I reported over the summer, as a lot of people said that those allegations were false and that these guys, paid a really tough price for it, but they all 3 have landed on their feet. Dan Caldwell being announced that he is returning to the government now. So he's my winner for the week. I think that's all. Oh, no, we've got questions right now. Look at me. I'm already trying to start my Friday early. We should take some questions.
Just a few. Sean's got to go here.
Okay. Sean's thoughts on the U.S. Navy slow to reopen.
Oh, fighting words.
U.S.'s last resort Gulf shipping ensure we hold on off switch, restore ships act, end, in my opinion, carbon tax, tariff Chinese ships. U.S. has more options than known. Leverage, reclaim the Panama Canal, and buy Greenland to shield Europe.
Yeah, maybe pass the Save Act while you're at it, and a few other things. We're good to go.
Yeah, I'll just say this: the Navy can reopen it. It's a question of whether or not the commercial ships will flow through it. I mean, they escorting a ship is one thing. I said before, I mean, one of these gets hit. Yep. They'll stop. These guys are not risk takers. They are commercial carriers, right? So the Navy can do its job to guard a ship. But remember, the strait from point to point of Hormuz is about 21 miles. The shipping channel is just over a mile. So you down a ship in the middle of that thing, you light it on fire, you're done. It's not, there's a lot more beyond what the Navy can do. This isn't just old school. We did it in the 80s. Escorting's one thing, but the drones and the small boats are quite another dynamic to this.
Yep.
Let's take another question. Okay, Mark, good morning. Question. Do we know from where Iran is still launching missiles or how many hypersonic missiles China has given Iran?
We don't. And of course, this is part of the problem is whether it's on the shoreline or anywhere, Iran has actually said that they still have production capabilities. Who knows if that's true or not, but for all of the talk about winning and we control 95, missiles are down 95%, all of this stuff, they still seem to be able to somehow do enough to close the straits, hit neighboring countries, fire at U.S. assets. So I don't know.
Well, and keep in mind, remember, it's not just Iran. It's Iran and Houthi proxies and things like that. Yep. So there's a lot more of this than just the state. You have a lot of non-state actors.
Yep.
Let's take another question. Okay, Kim, good morning. Question: when will DHS finally get funded? Oh my goodness. With spring break travel in full swing, will the Democrats get the blame since there has been things the administration has given and Nome leaving?
Look, this is one of those things we've talked about this now for the last 2 weeks. The fact that they're so focused on the SAVE Act, and stuff, they ought to be at airports. Literally, I think now they're going to close some regional, smaller airports because there literally aren't enough TSA agents. Like, I would be banging this drum if I were the Senate Republicans, House Republicans, and say, do your job, reopen the government.
Yep. I agree with you on that. I mean, I think look, I've said this before, and this is not something that I want to come true, but it's just a reality. It's going to take something unfortunate to happen. And that might be as simple as airports closing, that where members can't get out and their constituents go nuts, or some kind of incident. But here's the bigger long-term consequence of this. I mentioned these TSA agents. At a certain point, if you know that like you're going to see this game get played every 12 months, every 18 months, you can't live like that. And you see these folks not just not showing up, but quitting. And that's going to be a problem long-term.
We got to go, but I'll just say in terms of the blame for shutdowns, I have to feel like I've been reassessing my thoughts on this. Democrats should take the blame, but I also said they should have taken blame for the last shutdown. And the American voters blamed Republicans, which was a surprise, even though Democrats shut the government down. So, who knows on this? It's all a game of, spinning and who can go out and message it.
Well, better. Look, don't underestimate the fact that if you turn on television right now, particularly on conservative media, what are you seeing? Save Act, Save Act, Save Act, Save Act. Nothing on DH.
So the answer is let's just pass it.
Maybe that changes.
Just pass it.
All right, Sean's got to go. Do you have something you want to flag?
I do. Tonight, Peter St. Ange from the Heritage Foundation will be on to talk about oil prices, the options that we have, what's this going to do to the economy and politics. And also, I'm very excited. Hopefully, like the president today, I'm going to show him the cover of the book, Trump 2.0. So this is the cover. He wrote the foreword. So if you want to go on Amazon and order it, you never know. We'll do something fun for people who pre-order at this point. But go to Amazon, get Trump 2.0.
Before you know it, Christmas is going to be here. Get on it
right now.
Right.
That's right. And don't forget, guys, if you're a premium member, jump on right now. I will be there in a second. We'll see you guys on Monday. Thanks for joining.